Hare Krishna. I'll just make a very simple introduction, and I'll probably repeat it if I remember at the end. And that is that we're all gathered here from different parts of. Some devotees are here from Australia, so different part of the world. There is a world outside of the USSR, as they call it. One thing that unifies all of us is chanting Hare Krishna, and the home of chanting the holy name, of course, is Sridham Mayapur, and the development of Sridham Mayapur to bring Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into the eyes of the world. As you know, even in India, many people, they know Krishna, but they don't really know who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, what to speak of the rest of the world. That is the construction of the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. Now, we have a table out there which is there to both introduce to you this project, if for some reason you don't know, but also to give facility to contribute and participate. To the best of my knowledge, we need a few millionaires to chip in today. So if there's any of you here, I'm sure there are. It's something that Srila Prabhupada had told us, every book that we distribute is a brick in the TOVP, which has really changed design over the years, but now we see its really final incarnation. So just outside that door over there, don't hesitate to actually open up your heart to this project. Let me ask, who's donating to the Temple of Vedic Planetarium? Look, we got a lot of hands up. Fantastic. Thank you all so much. And whatever you give, you'll get back a lot more than what you gave. You certainly get Lord Nityananda's mercy, and that's priceless. Oops, you're starting. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balava Giri Vanithari Gopi Jana Balava Giri Vanithari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhakacharya Ashtatarasata Sishimadave Charanaravinda Bhaktivinoda Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shridas Thakur Ki Jai Shrirup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Jiva Gopala Bhatta Sargat Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Prem Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Radha Krishna Govinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Mathura Vrindam Dham Ki Jai Simaya Punavari Dham Ki Jai Gangamai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Harinam Shankirtan Ki Jai Janitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. My apologies to my exalted God brothers and God sisters. I'm not used to lately speaking so much in public, but in any case, I'll do the needful today if I have everybody's blessings. And please excuse me if I sort of cut things short, or rather keep to the schedule. Sachinandan Swami Maharaj asked me to be punctual so that everyone can be on time for breakfast at 8 o'clock, and then you can be back in time at 9 o'clock for Kirtan. And a lovely, lovely day of Sadhu Sanga. Here you see a verse behind me. I'm assuming it's behind me. And we're going to chant that responsively. This was given to me, and I don't know, but I assume that many of the verses will be about the holy name. This is also one spoken by our Srila Narada Muni. Dharmaste grihamedhiyo Varnita papanashana Grihasto jena padaving Anjusanyasinam yat Dharmaste grihamedhiyo Varnita papanashana Grasto jena padavim Anjasanyasinam miyat. One gentleman, Vaishnava. Mediyo Varnita Papanashana Grihasto Jena Padavim. Ladies, Navediyo Varnita Papanashana Stogena Padavim. Thank you. Let me do the word for word. Dharma, that religious process, te, to you. Grihamediya, although attached to householder life. Varnita, explained by me. Papanashana, the destruction of sinful reactions. Grihastha, a person in household life. Jena, by which. Padavim, with the position. Anjasa, very easily. Nyasinam, of those in the renounced order of life. Iyat, can obtain. Translation. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting even householders, grihastas, can very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. Maharaj Yudhisthira, I have now explained to you that process of religion. Please repeat. The process of chanting the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that by this chanting, even householders, grihastas, can very easily gain the ultimate result achieved by persons in the renounced order. Maharaj Yudhisthira, I have now explained to you that process of religion. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. This is a confirmation of the Krishna consciousness movement. Anyone who takes part in this movement, regardless of what he is, can gain the topmost result achieved by a perfect sannyasi, namely Brahma Gyan, spiritual knowledge. Even more important, he can advance in devotional service. Maharaj Yudhisthira thought that because he was a grihasta, there was no hope of his being liberated. And therefore, he asked Narada Muni how he could get out of material entanglement. But Narada Muni, citing a practical example from his own life, established that by associating with devotees and chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, any man in any condition of life can achieve the highest perfection without a doubt. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll explain a little the context here of this verse, because we're not going in any sequence. We're just all gathered here together for first day. And Srila Prabhupada starts off, as often he does, stating that this is a confirmation of the Krishna consciousness movement. I should have thought of projecting some of the verses that I'm going to cite on the screen. Prabhupada is always highlighting the fact that our Krishna consciousness movement is authorized. Here, what is the authority? Well, we have the highest of all authorities, Narada Muni, who you notice when you're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, he appears everywhere. He's always there. He's like the universal guru. He's participating in Krishna's pastimes. He appears throughout practically every single canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He has a very special role as the emblem of devotional service. And not just in Srimad Bhagavatam, but read the Puranas, read our Acharya's books, for instance, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is really a must-reading for devotees. Our whole sort of temple of planetarium, one part is designed around the journey of Gopkumar. And here Narada Muni says, yes, sannyasis, grihastas, and actually what's being left out is grihamedi, because there's two words here. One is grihamedi is mentioned, and the other one is grihasta is mentioned. Grihamedi refers to Narada Muni in a previous life, 2 lives before, and grihasta refers to Yudhisthira Maharaj. Yudhisthira Maharaj, Pandavas are far from being grihamedi. They are superior to any so-called sannyasi. But Srila Prabhupada here points out that anyone is qualified to attain perfection just through chanting Hare Krishna, and this is what we're doing. This is what the Krishna consciousness movement is doing. So within this law book for the next 10,000 years, Srila Prabhupada has embedded in not only the authenticity of the Krishna consciousness movement, but also the duty. We're chanting here all together, but then obviously we don't just chant together as Vaishnavas, but we take the chanting of the holy name to every town and village. Pritibhiti achayatra nagaradi gram. And this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order. So, Yudhisthira Maharaj is in this train of thought that he is a grihasta. Obviously, he's not an ordinary grihasta. Krishna is more or less part of his entourage, his bodyguard. Supreme Lord is staying awake all night, walking along the sides of the Hastinapur or Indraprastha fort, guarding. Of course, he doesn't really need to guard very much, so he can't be an ordinary grihasta when the Supreme Lord is not only living with him, but he's sitting right there. This is in Yudhisthira Maharaj's court. Narada Muni appears, and Krishna is also sitting there present, so he wants to know, now how am I going to become free from material entanglement? So what happens is that Narada Muni gives a personal example. We use that at times when we're preaching. We give the example of how we came to Krishna consciousness, or what really spurred us. We see the same thing in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. In fact, it's very interesting that the whole story is about this Gop Kumar telling about his life's journey. And towards the end, there's a section where he says that actually it is not proper for a Vaishnav to speak about himself or to speak about his journey, but for the sake of bringing someone to a higher level of Krishna consciousness, where it doesn't seem like they're able to figure it out just by reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and putting that into practice themselves, then Jena Kena, whatever method is suitable, use that method, but bring others to Krishna. So, what was his name? Upabarhana. In a previous life, and this is not the previous life where Narada is speaking to Vyas about what happened before he became Narada Muni, but a life before that. That was when he was born to a Shudrani who later died when Narada was very young. But rather this was when he was a Gandharva, and very handsome, very attractive. They're wonderful, wonderful singers. And Upabarhana, though, was very proud. He was quite arrogant. And one day the demigods, Prajapatis, had arranged a big Sankirtan, just like this. They invited all of the devotees for the glorification of the Lord. And Upabarhana, he came there, and he started singing about praises of the demigods or some non-devotional themes. And many of the young ladies were surrounding him. They were enchanted by his voice. You can just imagine his chanting, how heart-wrenching that can be. But the Prajapatis became very upset. We're chanting the names of Hari, and you're chanting the names of demigods, which actually is the offense to the holy name, to equate the chanting of the names of the demigods with that of the Supreme Lord. And so they cursed him. Take birth as a Shudra. You're acting like a Shudra, you're misusing the good birth that you've had, so take birth as a Shudra. And he did take birth as a Shudra. That story is narrated in real depth to Srila Vyasadeva. And then, after his mother dies, Narada Muni travels around and ultimately stays in one forest where he has darshan of the Lord. But he has a one-off darshan because still there are certain things within his heart that actually don't fully qualify him for going back home, back to Godhead. But what does happen is that he continues traveling around the world chanting the name of the Lord, and he then takes birth as the son of Brahma in his next life. He enters into the body of Mahavishnu, takes birth as Narada Muni, and now here he is always looking to glorify Krishna. So this verse is spoken in that context. The context being is that Narada Muni is pointing out that I got this opportunity to become this son of Brahma, to be the associate of the Lord. How? Just by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And even I. So here the word first starts off, if you look at the verse, Dharmaste Griha Medyo. So even though I'm a Griha Medi, I was a Griha Medi, now I'm here. Now what to speak of you, who is Grihasta Jena Padavim? There's a big difference between a Griha Medi and a Grihasta. Griha Medi is someone for whom material life, family, home, everything that comes along with it is the main purpose of life, whereas a Grihasta is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, so many of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates. They're examples of Grihastas for whom the service of the Lord is everything, and they're in this ashram, as opposed to, say, in this ashram, sannyas ashram, brahmacharya ashram, vanaprastha. Vanaprastha means also grihasta. So, grihetako, vanetako, hagauranga bulitako. And the same thing is being stated here. If you're chanting the name of Lord Chaitanya, if you're chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with love and devotion, then the grihasta achieves the same result as a sannyasi. In fact, now here the sannyas that's being spoken about are more the gyanis, whose goal is Brahmabhuta. All right, so they want to become liberated and they want to attain Brahmagyan, but real Brahmagyan is Brahma Janati Brahmana. Real Brahmagyan is to know Krishna. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam. He is the Supreme Brahman. So Arjuna points out, this is real Brahman. I'm going to, there's a lot actually here to say, but I'm going to move on because I want to point out or derive the strength or the authenticity of chanting Hare Krishna and the importance of chanting Hare Krishna in relationship to reading Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse comes from the Bhagavatam. It's there from the 7th canto. And chanting Hare Krishna is a theme of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is one of the two primary elements of what is known as Bhagwat Dharma. Sadhu Sanga, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavata Shavana, Mathura Vasa, Sri Murtiya Shadadhaya Sevana. So Sri Murtiya Shada Seva, worshipping the deity, is part of the Panchatriki system. Sadhu Sanga Nama Kirtan Bhagvat Shravana. And Sadhu Sanga means Bhagvat Shravana, really, because that's what association with devotee means. Association doesn't necessarily mean that, we entertain each other and so on, but real Sadhu Sanga means to hear Sat. Nasate vidyate bhavo, nabhavo vidyate sata. So Krishna says there's Sat and there is Asat. So what is the supreme Sat, the ultimate truth? That ultimate truth is described on the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And for that reason, Srila Prabhupada made his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam his mission. This was Srila Prabhupada's mission in life, and unfortunately, he only got to the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. It would have been so wonderful had Srila Prabhupada not only finished the Bhagavatam, but Prabhupada had a long list of other books that he wanted to do. It's a good lesson. We should never take it for granted that even if we have the most important service to Krishna that we're going to necessarily have the time to do it. We need to make the most. Of course, Prabhupada made the most. He didn't sleep. He did eat. Srila Prabhupada did honor prasadam, at least until last 6 months, 9 months, then his prasadam intake decreased. I've stopped. I've given up sex life. I've given up sleeping. Now I'm forced to give up eating, Srila Prabhupada said. Otherwise, Prabhupada very much enjoyed prasadam. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we're here, because Prabhupada taught us this science of cooking for Krishna. Not just Indian cuisine, but the Indian cuisine that, or at least the origin of the Indian cuisine, which is prasadam. But the important thing is here of our chanting, and what is also implicit here, is that to chant Hare Krishna, you have to read and study Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is the point that I would like to make here. This is what Bhagwat Dharma is. Bhagwat Dharma is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada on different occasions will talk about Pancha Triki Vidhi and Bhagavat Vidhi. So Bhagavat Vidhi is specifically associate with great devotees, hear Srimad Bhagavatam and chant the holy name of the Lord. So in the 11th canto, which is very, very wonderful part of the Bhagavatam, philosophically speaking, it's so expansive, and what to speak of Bhagavad Gita. But Krishna's talks to Uddhava in what is called the Uddhava Gita is so much more explicit and focused on devotional service than Krishna talks about in the Gita. It really is something that's worth in-depth study. So therein, one of the sons of Maharaj Rishabdev, one of the Navi-Yogendras, I'm saying one of them because I forgot which one, says the following: Jevai Bhagavata Prukta Upaya Hyatma Labdyate Anja Pungsang Avidusham Vidhi Bhagavatan Hitan. He says, even ignorant living entities can very easily come to know the Supreme Lord if they adopt the means prescribed by the Supreme Lord Himself. The process recommended by the Lord is to be known as Bhagwat Dharma, or devotional service to the personality of Godhead. So, many important points here, but one being that this Bhagwat Dharma, or Srimad Bhagavatam, is spoken by the Lord, it's prescribed by the Lord. Krishna Himself prescribes it and He teaches it. So originally He taught it to Brahma in the Chatushloki, and then Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikave, and then from within Brahma's heart, then it became further expanded into one version, and then later it became expanded into a even larger version, which we have at the present time. So Srimad Bhagavatam should not be taken as being a book. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra it's not just a mantra. There are so many mantras. Vedic literature is full of mantras. It is called the Maha Mantra. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calls it Maha Mantra in Chaitanya Bhagavat on numerous occasions. So sometimes it's challenged. Well, where does this scriptural reference come to it being Maha Mantra? Well, Chaitanya is the supreme scripture, and so he's distinguishing the Maha Mantra because Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. This is Krishna himself. Abhinatva Nama Namino. There's no difference from however you want to, and in Srila Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada gives you different variations of how you want to interpret the Hare Krishna mantra. Hari means O Hari, Hare means O Hari, it means O Hara. You refer to Krishna is obvious. Rama can be Balaram, can be Lord Ramachandra, can refer to Krishna's other name, Radhikaram. So, but the important thing is that there's no difference. Abhinatva Nama Namino. And in the same way that there's no difference between Krishna and the Mahamantra, there's no difference between Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, it's on paper, it's written in ink, and you distribute it on the streets. Vaisheshika Prabhu's here. I just want to give I'm just going to give this sort of breaking into my time, but it's a really wonderful story. I was just coming back from India. I stopped in Dubai to break the journey, and I gave Sunday program there. And one gentleman and his son came who live in Pakistan. And they came to Dubai, invited Maharaj, why don't you come to Pakistan and preach over there. Right now I could give you a couple of good reasons why, but who knows. In any case, great devotees who are distributing there, but they told me this, that when she showed me this picture of a program with 10,000 devotees in Pakistan. Big, big pandal. You would have thought it was in downtown Mumbai or something. It was in Karachi. In any case, they said when we first went there were no books. And you couldn't get any books into Pakistan. So, it's a very... especially if you go to the Arab countries. Of course, Pakistan is really what was once India, so they're a little different Muslims, but still very, very strict. So they went and they were holding programs and talking about Srila Prabhupada, talking about Prabhupada's books, talking about Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Prabhupada's mission, and so on. And they just had, when they had their programs, they had a picture, of course, of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. So one gentleman came up who had a paper pulp factory. And he said, it's funny, I recognize your guru. And he says, really? He says, yeah, why don't you come over to my place and let me show you something. I've seen pictures of him. Anyway, I'm making a long story short. He took him over, and the gentleman had about a dozen Bhagavatams in his paper pulp. They were about to, I don't know what they do with them, dissolve them and then remake them into paper. Anyway, he said, well, where did you get these? He says, you don't understand. These in America, they throw out their paper, and we buy cheap American paper. So these books were in the bins that came from America. They're thrown out. They traveled to Pakistan. They were the first books, first Bhagavatams that were distributed in Pakistan. So that's pretty far out. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the books, they have their own minds, and they just to determine where they're going to go. No one can hold them up. So it's how do we know And why is this chanting? How do we know that kirtan is such a important aspect of Krishna consciousness, and specifically that it is part of Bhagwat Dharma? To know that, one should actually study Srimad Bhagavatam. Is chanting Hare Krishna the theme of Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, the answer is no. The theme of Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nonetheless, it is a theme that accompanies the fact as to what is going to be the sadhana for achieving ultimately the sadhya, the goal of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is, we know, Krishna Prema. And we read about different types of Krishna Prema, but Shukadeva Goswami highlights one type of prema, and that is the prema that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also emphasized to us. So there is a 6-point analysis, and that's what I'm going to go through, and I regret I didn't think about projecting on the board. There's a 6-point analysis that Jiva Goswami uses to analyze the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's actually used to analyze any particular text. You can do it for a whole big scripture like the Bhagavatam or shorter ones. You'll see it requires these 6 ingredients. And this is something that was originally formulated by Jaimini Rishi. Yes, Jaimini Rishi in one sense sometimes is referred to as not a devotee, but obviously when you read Mahabharata and other, you see that actually Jaimini Rishi is also a Vaishnava. He's also there, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about him. So in his Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami also refers to this system and uses it himself. It was also quoted by Madhavacharya in his commentary on Vedanta Sutra. The specific 6 points are like this: Upakramo pasamharav, abhyaso puravata palam, artavado papaticha, lingam tat paryate parya nirya naye. Obviously, I do not know this verse. The translation is as follows: in understanding the meaning of a particular passage, the means are upakarma, upasamhara, abhyas, apurvata, phalam, artavad, and upapati. Yes, that's 7, but there's actually just 6. So the 6 factors are the following: the introductory and the concluding statements of a text. So that's where the 2 just count as 1. What is repeated most often? What is very, very unique that arises within a text? What is it that is glorified most often in the text? And what is something that presents some extraordinary result or is sympathetic with and gives the same result as the text which is being spoken about, and that which conclusion which one comes to through logic. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So what does a text start with and what does it finish with? What is repeated most often? What stands out as being extremely unique? What is something that over and over and over again is repeated? What is the result of that specific practice that is synonymous with the result of the text, and what is that comes to logical conclusion. So when all of these 6 things converge and they point to one thing, then you know, yes, this is the theme of a text. If you Bhagwat Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha, if you look at Jiva Goswami Sandarbha, then you'll see how he does this for showing that actually the theme of Srimad Bhagavatam, or a major theme, the primary theme, is to show that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it does so with all of these 6 different factors. Here, we're also going to point out, or at least go through just a few verses that show and emphasize how these 6 points also converge and come to the same conclusion, that the sadhana which is employed by those who are followers of Bhagwat Dharma is chanting Krishna Varnam Tisa Krishnam Sango Pangashtra Parashadam Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yajantihi Sumedasa. Those who are Sumedasa, then they will Yagyai Sankirtana Prayer. They will do this Sankirtana. And Sankirtana is defined like this. Jiva Goswami says, some kirtan, when many devotees come together to do kirtan, that is considered to be Sankirtana. Chanting earlier, chanting japa together, that is also counted as Sankirtana. So, how well do you know the Bhagavatam? Introductory and concluding statements. What is an introductory verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that talks about chanting the Lord's name? Anyway, we're limited, and we're just going to go. There are various verses, many verses, but the first verse of the Bhagavatam ends, Param Satyam Dhimahi. Now let us all chant the glories of the Lord. Let us all meditate. If that isn't specific enough in the 14th verse, then Apana Samsmiti Gauram. So, living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. So, after setting the scene and giving a preliminary introduction, then immediately what is the first thing that is being spoken about here? Chanting the holy name of Krishna, feared by fear personified. So devotees never need to be in a fear position. This is the beginning. And what's the end? Someone know the last verse of Srimad Bhagavatam? Who's that great person who's saying that? Nama Sarkirtanandasya. Lovely. Obviously, the end of a book is really telling you what it's about. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Hari, the congregational chanting of whose holy names destroys all sinful reactions, and the offering of obeisances unto whom relieves all material sufferings. Nama Sankirtananjasya. So do you really need to go any further? It becomes very, very clear. It's ending with Nam Sankirtan. Now what is repeated? Go through, of course, you'd have to use folio, and if you just put on Nam Sankirtan or Nam, then you're going to get a lot of hits because Srila Prabhupada's talking about it so many times in his purports. But if you look at the verses themselves, over and over and over, the chanting of the Lord's names, whether it's Prachetas, whether it's Narada Muni, whether it's Srila Vyasadeva, whether it's everywhere, practically speaking, in every chapter, in every canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in every lila, the chanting of the holy name is emphasized. If not absolutely directly, then it becomes also implicit. So something's repeated. You know, when you keep repeating something over and over again, that means that this is what we're talking about. The third one, as I mentioned, is originality. I'm just going to quote one, and this is from the 8th canto. Makes a very unique statement, a very original statement when it comes to a Vedic scripture. It says, in the various kinds of Vedic sacrifice and worship mentioned in the Vedas, there may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras and observing the regulative principles, paraphernalia, but when your Lordship's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. In other words, just by chanting Hare Krishna, there are so many rituals. If you make a mistake, if you may make even a little mistake, you get the wrong result. But here's something very unique, that everything gets corrected by chanting Hare Krishna. We perform Vedic sacrifices. Now, ahobatasva pachato gariya, and yes, Vaishnavas are qualified to perform Vedic sacrifices, but how accurately, how perfectly we do it. Why? Because whenever we perform Vedic sacrifice, there must be chanting Hare Krishna. It is only the chanting of Krishna's holy names that will make adjustment. Another verse, which you all know, akama sarvakamova mokshakama udaradi. O King, the constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the way of great authorities is doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from material desires, who are desirous of all material enjoyment, who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. Again, this is something very original. Generally, the Vedas give a certain prescription for a certain attachment, a certain type of spiritual practice that someone is attached to. But here is something different. Akama, it doesn't matter. You're full of material desires, you have no material desires. You want to go to the heavenly planets, whatever you want, just chant. And that one thing will give all results. And that's not the Vedic way, but that is the way of Bhagavad Vidhi. That is the way of chanting Hare Krishna. Result. What type of result do you get? Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan. Anyway, but that's not Bhagavatam, that's Narottam Das Thakur. Results. What is the ultimate result of chanting Hare Krishna? Of course, it depends on how you chant Hare Krishna. And there may be Namaparad, and there may be Namabas, and there may be Shudranam, and there may be Premanam. But to get from one to the other, and my emphasis here is, you need to read, and not read, but you need to study this Srimad Bhagavatam. It's said that Jiva Goswami, of course we're not going to compete with Jiva Goswami, but that he had Bhagavatam in the palm of his hand, just like you hold a nut in the palm of your hand. He used to walk around with the books, so sometimes people called him just a scholar. I got 4 minutes. So what's the result? Kalir dosha nidhe rajan. This is at the end, at the 12th canto. Kali, oh my dear king, although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, there's still one good quality about this age. Simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one can become free from material bondage and promoted to the transcendental kingdom. Everybody knows it's our motto, back home, back to Godhead. And what is it that's glorified and repeatedly glorified over and above anything else? Krishna Varnam Tasa Krishnam Sango Pangashta Parshadam. So this Sankirtan Yagya, over and over and over. There are many other topics in the Bhagavatam, but this chanting is being glorified, it's being repeated over and over again, and ultimately you come to a logical conclusion. Thus I loudly, this is Narada Muni again, but this is back in the first canto. Thus I loudly chanted the holy name of Krishna in kirtan, not caring for any social formalities. Such chanting and remembering the holy name benedicts everyone. In this way I traveled across the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and non-envious. Now what's so logical about that? Well, Narada Muni keeps repeating the same thing over. If it worked for him, then it's going to work for us. It's the logical sequence of all of the other personalities involved in the Bhagavatam who did dedicate their lives to ultimately chanting and performing Nam Sankirtan. They attained that perfection. Therefore, logic holds true that if it works for them, it's going to work for us. And there are very fallen examples in Bhagavatam. Of course, Ajamil is the most, that here was somebody who actually unconsciously chanted the name of the Lord. That didn't qualify him to go back to Godhead, or he didn't go back to Godhead by that. It qualified him to then go off to Hardwar, where he continued to chant. And that way, the Vishnudutas came and took him back to Godhead. So by this system, we see that Srimad Bhagavatam does converge on this conclusion. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam. That our business is nasti eva, nasti eva. There is no other way. This is the focus of Bhagavatam in terms of what our sadhana is. But if you want to chant properly, you have to study the message of Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam doesn't just talk about the ends. It also talks about the means and the systematic consciousness, Krishna consciousness, that we have to cultivate in order to achieve that. 7:59, and the clock ticks now. I just want to thank you all very much, and I want to conclude on this one point also, what I started off with, which is TOVP. Many of you came in after my initial announcement. Temple of Vedic Planetarium has a table outside where our TOVP heroes are inducing us to participate more and more in this once-in-a-lifetime achievement, which is constructing Temple of Vedic Planetarium. Do the most that you can, and temples and centers, do your bit, because that's one group that hasn't really contributed. In Hungary, we give the temples $50,000 a year. That's separate from the individuals. I know that many devotees donate as individual contributors, but temples themselves do not. At least many do not. And therefore they're losing out on some mercy. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. TOVP ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.